Hi, everyone. Welcome back into Bible Boot Camp. My name is Derek. We're on episode 8 today, and we are going to be continuing with the story of Abram and moving into chapter 13 of Genesis. So if you haven't had an opportunity to check out the other episodes, I recommend doing so as we're going in chronological order. Now, today's lesson, we're going to actually jump right into it. This lesson today is about Abram and his nephew Lot. If you recall from the beginning of the call of Abram, he moved out of his native land and actually took his nephew Lot with him and all of his possessions. We're going to jump into a time now where Abram and his wife have been exiled out of Egypt due to Abram essentially lying that Sarai was his sister instead of his wife. At this time now, he is, again, traveling with his wife and he's traveling with his nephew, and we're going to see a bit of a conflict. So let's jump into chapter 13 of Genesis and get into it. Beginning in verse 5. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents, but the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herders and Lot's. The Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land at the time. So Abram said to Lot, "Let's not have quarreling between you and me, or between herders of mine and yours, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left." So there are several different takeaways that we can get from this. So what is happening at this time is Abraham and Lot have both had great success, and they have both have great wealth and value possessions. So what's happened is, because they're staying together, there's not enough room for them because they have too many things. Now, we can take this as a metaphor for saying that one person's success can sometimes hinder another person's success. Or we can also take it in a way as sometimes what'll happen, especially between family members, like we're seeing here, a family might grow, and you might outgrow a shared home or a shared space. So you have to part and go separate ways. It's just logistics. It's just something that has to happen. And this is not always a bad thing. A third way that we could look at this is sometimes people will grow more spiritually in God. And, maybe you're in a roommate situation where that person is, still of the world, and you are, more so now becoming more spiritual. You're growing your intellect, you're growing your intelligence in God. So now all of a sudden the two of you aren't on the same page. There's not enough room for you to continue to grow spiritually. So it's just necessary for you to part. So again, a bunch of different takeaways that we can take from this slight conflict that is happening between Abram and his nephew Lot. But let's continue on. Verse 10. Lot looked around and saw the whole plain of the Jordan towards Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out towards the east. The two men parted ways. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived amongst the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. Okay, so something we've been talking about quite a bit is whenever someone in the Bible leaves the presence of the Lord or starts going against the will of God, they tend to travel east. So notice in these group of verses here, it is Lot that is chosen to go travel towards the east. And because he's chosen to travel towards the east, he has chosen a land that is sinful and prideful against God. This is going to play a very big and huge impact as we're going forward in Genesis, and we'll get there when we get into chapter 14. But Abram, again, has just chosen to go the opposite way of the way that Lot has chosen to go. So again, we can really take this as an example, as a learning opportunity, that if there's someone that's in our lives, even if there's someone that's really, really close to us, that is just sinful in nature. They are not heeding any of the advice, the godly advice, the Christian advice that you're giving them, then eventually it's going to be necessary for you to part ways. Now, again, this does not mean that you cannot communicate with this person. It does not mean that you cannot still have a relationship with this person, but to actually be in in the same kind of household, in the same shared space, in the same fellowship with them as you were in the past before being a Christian. God is just showing us in these passages that is not possible, because good and evil are opposites of one another. And unlike the saying, opposites attract, it's actually the opposite of that. We have to separate ourselves from those who are sinful after we've given them warning. It is our responsibility and our jobs as Christians to counsel those that are lost, and offer them salvation through Jesus Christ, of course. But if they're not willing to listen, if they're not willing to accept those things, then we are to move on and create some distance between us and them. Verse 14, the Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, look around from where you are, to the north and south, to the east and west. All of the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make you and your offspring like dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go, walk through the length of the breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. So Abram went near the great trees where he had pitched his tents. There he built an altar to the Lord. Okay, so the chapter closes out with the Lord blessing Abram. The Lord blessing Abram because it was his will. It was God's will for Abram and Lot to part. So sometimes, even if it's difficult, even if it's a family member, even if it's a close friend that we have to part away from, we have to move and go our separate ways from, the Lord is going to bless you because you've made that difficult decision. Whenever we are lined up with the will of God, God blesses us. And that's exactly what we're seeing the Lord do with Abram here. Due to his obedience, he is rewarded. I hope today's episode was insightful and helped you. Join us next time on Bible Boot Camp when we will be on episode 9. Until then, God bless.